Bored from a long and dry Overwatch League offseason, wishing you could go back to the good old days of professional Overwatch? Well, my friends, look no further because we have a perfect solution to help scratch that itch. This Friday and Saturday, aka December 16th and 17th, Overwatch Korea has a special treat for us. Introducing the Overwatch Legends match. Basically, what this is a showcase/exhibition tournament where 4 classic teams from the OG Overwatch Apex days in Korea will be competing against one another. The participants are GC Busan, Kangdu Panthera, Lunatic High, and Runaway, which are 4 of the staples from the Apex days, and all teams that competed in legendary finals. We'll get into the rosters themselves in a little bit, but for now I just wanted to kind of go over some of the details about this, because it's worth advertising and discussing since it is a pretty interesting event that some people might miss out on if they're not paying attention to social media. And that's why I'm here to help spread the word, because I know a lot of you watching are OG fans, and you love Overwatch Korea and Apex and some of these specific players and teams, so I gotta do my part here. Plus, we don't really have anything else to look forward to, so might as well talk about something that's pretty interesting in the news. And of course, in classic ATP fashion, I'll give you a bit of a preview with some background info for some of you new viewers who don't know about these teams and their history and everything, and I'll give you some predictions as well, because why not? But for now, let's start with some of the important details. So, like I said, December 16th and 17th, we're going to have these matches play out, and they will be at 4 a.m. Eastern Time /1 a.m. Pacific, so make sure to adjust your time zone accordingly to know when this match goes on. And if it is too late for you, of course, I encourage you to watch the VOD instead, like I myself will be doing. A lot of legends and big names will be participating, along with some other interesting new faces. And also, just to add on to the magic, it's going to be commentated by Wolf and Achilleos, who were around in the Apex days and were pretty big in Overwatch Korean contenders as well. For some additional information, this will be live on the Overwatch Korea YouTube and Twitch channels, and you can assume that'll probably be live on like the Overwatch League channel, if not the English Play Overwatch channel. Probably one or both. It's going to be a blast watching these classic teams take the stage once more in an epic showdown to claim all of the bragging rights here on a lot of these guys' retirements. But who is it that is representing each team? Well, on GC Busan, you're going to have Prophet, Illicit, Alpha Yi at damage, then at support, Fielder Neko Hagopun, and then Gesture will be the tank. On Kangdu Panthera, their DPS line consists of Decay, Bird Ring, and Choi Se-wan. Then at support, they interestingly enough have Rascal plus Coma, and then tank will be Changsik and Void. Then to the absolute delight of Lunatic High / Seoul Dynasty fans, they're going to be rolling with their classic lineup from the Apex days. Eska, Who Are You, Guido, Ryu Jae-hong, Toby, and Miro. And finally, representing Runaway will be Haxel, Stitch, Hisu, Gangnam Jin, Lee Jae-gon, Runner at support, and finally Bumper, my main man, is making his return at tank. As you can see, there's a lot of legendary names representing all of these teams, but there's also some new school names who did not play with some of these legends in Apex and were more so on these rosters during the Overwatch Contenders Korea days. But in terms of like the big names that everyone loves and remembers from that era, on GC Busan you have Prophet and Gesture and the magic they pulled off, and I think it was season 4 of Apex, going on that magical title run, Prophet picking up the Genji and the Tracer and whatnot. And then on Kangdu you have Bird Ring, and you have Rascal, and even Void. Those guys really made some huge splashes back in the day and had a really fun matchup against Lunatic High. Hell, even Decay and Coma are kind of legends these days when you really think about it. Decay for being a really hyped up prospect when he was initially coming out of contenders and helping to take that Kangdu team to the finals against Runaway. Same with Coma and then his journey on the Shanghai Dragons and everything. And Lunatic High, I mean, that entire team is just all legends. They all played together to win multiple titles. A bunch of these dudes ended up winning, MVPs, Guido, Jae-hong, etc. And then Runaway, of course, who have a mix of like the old and new, who are all kind of legends in the history of this franchise in their own respective way. Gangnam Jin and Lee Jae-gon, as well as Hisu, for continuing on the winning ways of the old squad after they won contenders and moved on to the Overwatch League. And then you have Haxel, Stitch, Bumper, and Runner, who were very big for the Apex days. And I mean, excluding Runner, the other 3, they ended up winning the first title in Runaway's history, and it was a really fun moment. There's a lot of ups and downs for this franchise, and they have a very magical story that's been told over and over. And now all of these guys are renewing their rivalry rivalries, so to speak. There's so many to speak of in this one little tournament/exhibition thing alone. GC Busan and Runaway get another crack at each other after their amazing finals match from all those years ago. Then you have Kongdu Panthera versus Lunatic High. That was an epic, such an epic series. And who could forget about the Lunatic High versus Runaway game, where Runaway seemed like they had that finals in the bag. They had a big lead, but then Lunatic High crawled all the way back from the brink of death to pull off one of the most magical first place finishes we have ever seen in the history of professional Overwatch. And while Runaway and Kongdu Panthera didn't have much going for themselves during the Apex days, they did end up playing in one of the greatest matches of GOATs we have ever seen during an Overwatch Contenders finals. Much like during the moments that they blew a big lead to Lunatic High during the Apex days, Runaway pulled off a massive multi-map comeback, and it was absolutely incredible to bear witness to, and it's probably a lot of people's favorite matches of all time to this date. My point is, all these franchises have a lot of magic to them, and are a really big staple in the history of competitive Overwatch, specifically in the Korea region. Many of these guys continued their legacy even after leaving behind this aspect of their career. Think about Prophet, Gesture, Birdring, Rascal, Void, Lee Jae-gon. They've all won Overwatch League Grand Finals and have continued to just be magical players in the history of this game. And now all of them, plus many, many more, are going head-to-head in what should be an epic battle, a clash between people who are no longer playing the game and people who still are relevant to this day. All four of these franchises are absolute classics and have massive fan bases who are probably extremely pumped to see this matchup, even if it only is for a couple of days. But considering that a lot of these guys either are still professionals or are looking to come back to the Overwatch League very soon, this makes for a fun little preview to see what could be to come and how motivated some of these guys truly are to continue their careers. That level of motivation alongside the bragging rights make this a situation where maybe we get some pretty intense Overwatch for something that's supposed to be more so on the casual side. All of these teams competed against each other a long time ago, so obviously you want to take it home. You want to show that you truly are the best of Apex and that you aged the most gracefully. Not to mention, there's a lot of potential grudges to be settled. There's revenge on the line, as well as some teams looking to remain on top after all of these years. People don't forget about this stuff. This was a big deal. Apex was massive. Can Runaway get the revenge over GC Busan for stealing away a title from them? Can Lunatic High get back at Runaway for their most recent exhibition? Or can Runaway continue to stay on top and show that, yeah, we're better than you overall in terms of longevity? And how about Kongdu Panthera? Will they finally get back at Lunatic High, or will they continue to show that they were the true dynasty of Apex? And that revenge moves into Runaway to a certain extent as well, as both Coma and Decay were on that losing team in that tough finals loss during the GOATS era. But the question is, which roster looks the best? Who in theory has the best chance to take this home? Well, how about a quick evaluation of the rosters, and considering the fact that we're in Overwatch 2. So to go off of like a ranking system, I think I'm going to start with Lunatic High as the worst potential team coming into this thing. I could be wrong because they almost did defeat a superior looking Runaway in an exhibition game, but just on paper, they feel the weakest overall. As legendary as this team is, you have to remember that Who Are You is the only active player on this roster. Essentially, their team is a bunch of old men who probably haven't been playing the game that much recently, and Who Are You, who's mostly just known for Genji, even to this day. I still think to this day they have a definite strength with Ryu Jae-hong and Toby. No matter how long goes by, they're always going to be a reliable duo no matter what, but there's maybe some question marks about how the rest of the team performs. It really depends on how casual or seriously this is taken, but how does Miro do, for example? He didn't exactly leave the Overwatch League scene on the brightest of notes, and since then he's moved on to coaching for quite some time. We know he'll be able to do fine on like Winston, for example, but how's he going to do by himself with no Zumba next to him on some of those off-tank heroes? Like, what if he has to play Doom or Diva or Zarya, you know? I'm not exactly sure if I trust him to get the job done, but the only bright side in all of this is a lot of his competition has been out of the game as well. Like I said before, Bumper's just getting into the swing of it. Then you have Void, who is literally about to retire and go do his military service, I believe. Changsik's been out of it. I believe he's been a commentator, if I remember correctly. And it's not like Gesture has been very active either. So in theory, Miro has probably a really decent chance to maybe hold his own. but I still consider him to be one of the worst tank options in this thing. But who knows, maybe a fire will be lit underneath him again, and he'll return to form and show those boys that, yeah, he owns Apex even after all of these years. But even if he does do a decent job, I really don't know about this DPS line, man. Eska, Who Are You, and Guido just doesn't speak out to me. I mean, from like a nostalgia standpoint, it's awesome, and we have to remember that Who Are You and Guido, they used to be like finals MVPs or whatever back in the day, or some sort of MVP, I don't remember exactly, but they were very inspiring on that DPS role together. But it's been a long time, and Who Are You's the only guy really in Overwatch League form. Glad to see them back, but they are definitely towards the lower end of the DPS rankings, so therefore, I'm going to say that Lunatic High are the number 4 team heading into this tournament. Would I be surprised if they won, though? No. Not at all. Anything can happen, but I do not love their chances. I apologize in advance, Lunatic High and/or Soul fans, but that's just how I feel looking at this team. It's cool for the nostalgia factor, but beyond that, I wouldn't hold my breath. Now we have the rest of the rankings where things get a lot more complicated. In the end, at number 3, I decided to go with Runaway. It was a tough choice for sure, ranking these last 3, but I felt that Runaway overall maybe wasn't as strong as some of these other teams since they don't have as much Overwatch League representation as these other rosters that are still left. Lee Jae-gun and Hisu are solid. I'm glad they're on this team. They'll be reliable, but I don't even know how much exactly they'll play. Is there a lot of guaranteed playtime? I'd hope so if they're looking to win, because Stitch, definitely not as good as Hisu, and Runner, love the guy to death, but he's always been kind of a meme, so Lee Jae-gun all the way if they want the best possible chance of taking this home. A cool redeeming quality, kind of like with Lunatic High though, is Runaway definitely has a lot of good chemistry going. They've got Hoxel, they've got Bumper, they've got Stitch, but with some of these younger guys, they might not mesh quite as well together. I don't really know what's going to happen there, but generally the team still does look pretty good, right? Hoxel, I'm still confident he could be pretty darn good. Hisu is coming off a really solid year, arguably a career year for some people. Gundam Jin, while not as solid on NYXL this year, I still think is a good player, and under a better system, he can definitely thrive. Lee Jae-gun, one of the best main supports in the league. I think the real wild card is probably Bumper, right? In theory, I think that Overwatch 2 could be really good for the guy, as he has experience playing both off-tank and main tank in his Overwatch career. He's pretty darn flexible, and even showed he can play some of the newer heroes in the most recent exhibition from like a couple of years ago. Dude was dominating on Sigma, if I remember correctly. So maybe Bumper could do alright. With there being one less tank, Bumper could also be more of the focus in terms of getting the resources, which could also be a beneficial thing for the guy. I think Bumper is like a large deciding factor in how far this team could go in like a potential tournament. And since it's been a couple of years since he has played, I don't have complete and utter confidence in the guy, especially because it's not like he has Twilight and Slime back there, you know? Lee Jae-gun and Gundam Jin are solid, but they don't have a lot of playing experience with somebody like Bumper. It's not the same thing. It takes time to build that chemistry. There's like a split going on with this team, which is cool because you have like the new school Runaway that won as well as the old school, but it could be problematic at the same time. They have a lot of good strengths. I don't know if they have any excellence these days, maybe outside of Lee Jae-gun, but still a pretty well-rounded team, right? You have hit scan options, you have Hoxel to play your projectile, you have a decent flex support, you've got a good main support if you play Lee Jae-gun. Bumper can play a wide variety of tanks. Runaway's in decent shape. I might have them in third, but it's a very close third, and I would not be surprised if they take this thing home. Coming in at number 2, you've got GC Busan, which may be a bit of a hot take. A lot of people might be saying that Runaway should be in the top 2 instead of GC Busan, which I understand. But for me, GC Busan gets the nod for the simple fact that they have 2 star-level Overwatch League players. Not just stars, arguably superstars. They were both role stars this year. Prophet was in the MVP conversation. These are 2 of the best players in the entire world right now, and GC Busan has both of them. That is a major advantage when considering how many of these players are retired or just don't really play the game that much anymore. Prophet, I mean, my boy loves to win, and GC Busan, I'm sure they want to take it home for their pride. You know, they want to show they're actually the best team in Apex. Prophet loves a good challenge, so I think he'll go all out. Even with all the soul drama going on recently, I'd expect him to have a good showing, especially against a lot of these, I don't want to say washed DPS players, but a lot of these old men, if you will. And I mean Fielder, oh lord, he mobs the floor with his flex support competition. No offense whatsoever to Ryu Jae Hong. I mean, he's a legend of the game, but Fielder right now is at his peak. He is playing some of the best Overwatch you'll ever see out of the flex support position. This man's a monster, and if all things go according to plan, he should be the best flex support in the lobby all the time. And it's not just Prophet and Fielder, you know, they actually have a lot of active players just in terms of competitive Overwatch on this team. alexyOWL's absolutely a shout as well. Really solid flex DPS for the Hangzhou Spark this year. Looking for a new home, but he balled out a lot during the playoffs recently. Very flexible and solid player with a ton of potential. And Neko, while obviously didn't really look too good on the Spark in a weird situation, still is an active player and has been, scrimming in the Overwatch League recently. And Illicit, while not in the league, has been playing in contenders. So GC Busan is packing a lot of active talent. However, where the controversy comes in with ranking GC Busan this high is the fact that alexyOWL is the only other guy aside from Prophet and Fielder that really jumps out at you. Illicit, while he has improved certainly, isn't that much of a threat. Neko, really not that impressive at main support. Hagupun, it's been years since I've seen that guy play. Gesture's been retired too and looked washed when he was playing for the most part, so I don't really know, man. It's a tough situation. GC Busan has to be carried by their top players. And that's kind of scary because as good as Prophet and alexyOWL are on paper, this team lacks a hit scan. Illicit can't play hit scan. Prophet and alexyOWL are more so known for like projectile and tracer as well. So someone's going to have to fill in that role, because if not, they're going to get rolled by people like Hisu and Birdring. They're going to have all the space in the world to just do their thing uncontested. So GC Busan has to come up with some sort of strategy if they're not going to roll with consistent hit scans. I guess maybe you could put Prophet on that role. We've seen him do it before in the past and look pretty decent. But compared to some of these other stars, I don't really know if he has what it takes to consistently keep up. So there might have to be some sort of other game plan in the mix to make sure that GC Busan's in their comfort zone and they aren't being taken advantage of by these long-range snipers. That is going to be their win condition, dictating the game in the way that they want and not letting teams do whatever the heck they want to do. And of course, there's maybe a bit of worries about Gesture, just like what I said with Bumper and Miro. These guys are retired. It's been a long time. He could, in theory, take advantage of the fact that a lot of these guys are retired just like him, though. And on top of that, him and Prophet, as well as alexyOWL, I guess I should say, could get some good coordinated dives going that could really ruin the lives of some of these hit scan players and other specific targets. That could be the thing to get GC Busan the win, if their dives are really good, if that's what they intend to play. I do have some worries about this team. They're definitely not the most well-rounded, and they could have some flexibility issues on top of that. And you could argue they are interchangeable with Runaway for the second place spot. They're not invincible by any stretch, but I do think deep down they have an advantage thanks to the fact that they have two role star / superstar level players in Prophet and Fielder to lead the way, and alexyOWL as solid backup, and they have some decent synergy. And of course, at number 1, that leads us to Kangdu Panthera. And my ultimate reason for picking them is, for one, they also have multiple OWL / superstar level competitors. I'm sure that Birdring could still be really good. Decay is still a solid option. Void, even though he just retired recently, is one of the best tanks in the league. Choice A1's a very underrated flex DPS. They have major options. That DPS line in particular is extremely deadly on paper. They offer a lot of versatility. Both Decay and Choice A1 are very flexible pieces. Birdring can play like any hit skin under the sun, and I'm sure he could be good on Sojourn as well. I have no doubt about that. This team's looking mighty stacked at DPS, and I'd argue that they have the most well-rounded DPS line in this entire thing. In Void, I mean, he's literally the only person who even sniffed OWL recently, so in theory they should have the advantage at tank since he's still well practiced and he just has the general advantage and knowledge of how to play this game better than some of these guys competitively. But of course, no tank is complete without a solid support line, and that is where Kangdu Panthera has major question marks, as Rascal, I mean, while he's a legendary player, we've never seen him play flex support really. We've seen him play some support here and there as like a Brig and sometimes on BAP, but not a true dedicated flex support. And it's not like Koma's some sort of home run hit either. He was a really solid and serviceable player on Shanghai in 2019, but that was quite a few years ago, and since then he has not rejoined the scene competitively, so there could be some question marks about his performance as well. And just like comparatively speaking, they feel like maybe the weakest support line on paper. How well can Rascal and Koma even synergize together? And they don't really necessarily have the star power needed excited either if Rascal can't perform at that level or if Koma can't channel what he did back in 2019. Jisoo Busan aren't that great outside of Fielder, but Fielder himself is a god, and with Lunatic Kai, Jaehong and Toby might be retired, but they're legends of this game and have incredible synergy with one another. And with Runaway, Gundam Jin and Lee Jae-gon are both good and they have previous synergy. So this is an uphill battle in theory for Rascal and Koma. The only bright spot in the scenario though is that support just isn't as strong as it was in Overwatch 1, and generally right now support is kind of a nightmare role to play. It's not as impactful as DPS or tank. So that's why I think Kangdu Panthera generally could get away with it so long as Rascal and Koma don't make awful decisions, which I don't expect them to because they're pretty smart guys. They're the weakest on paper at the arguably weakest position in the game, so not the biggest deal to me. I think they can persevere due to the simple fact that their DPS and tank are in a really good spot. It's not by much, but they are who I consider to be the strongest team on paper and maybe arguably the favorites. It's kind of tough to say. It's up in the air. Like I said, spots 1 through 3 on my list, you could really argue for any of them, but that's how I see it. I think Kangdu, by a very slight margin, has the strongest team. Okay, but who wins this thing if there's like a tournament, let's say? Well, it's gonna sound wacky because they weren't my #1 ranked team, but I'm going to say on a limb that GC Busan is going to pull off a victory. It's not going to be pretty. I think it'll be really tough, and it doesn't even make that much sense on paper due to that DPS line. But I just have this good feeling. And I say that because I really think they're the ones who are the most likely to make those huge plays or be dominant when it matters. Prophet and Fielder might be the top 2 players in this entire tournament, and they're on the same exact team. If anybody's going to step up and make a difference when this game is on the line, it's got to be the 2 Roll-Star level OWL players from this year. That's what I'm going to be banking on. Kangdu arguably is the more well-rounded team thanks to the DPS and Void, but man, those questions on support could end up hurting them. Is Rascal good enough to compete on a new role? And what of Koma? Back in his heyday, yeah, he was good, but like I said, he hasn't competed in a while, and I'm pretty sure he was doing military service recently, so he's likely way out of it. But like I've been saying throughout this video, this is just a show match. Well, I guess I should say like show tournament, show round robin, not exactly sure. So anything can happen, and you really don't know how likely it is these teams will try. Usually these events aren't extremely serious, so don't be surprised if absolutely nothing makes sense. But like I mentioned as well, this might be something that lights a fire under these guys at the same time. It can go either way. It's surely going to feel like the good old days to a lot of them. It'll bring back some great memories, which means that pride and bragging rights are certainly on the line to a certain extent. There is a chance to right the wrongs, take revenge, and or prove you are the true king of Apex. It's really difficult to say what goes down in this type of instance, but regardless of the outcome and competitive integrity have you, this should be a pretty wonderful event. For all the longtime fans watching, it'll feel just like the good old days. It'll surely trigger a lot of heavy nostalgia for the Apex lovers and supporters of these specific franchises and players. There's a good mix of new generation players and OGs to attract a lot of different audience members. Watching so many legends take the stage at once is just what we need in this current situation, because the future of Overwatch esports does feel very uncertain, so how about we just go back to the glory days for a little while and enjoy ourselves. Just take the next few days to remember what this game was at its peak in terms of esports. It's a great way for a lot of us fans to band together for what could be one of the final times. And it also might motivate some newer fans to go back and see what all the hype was about. Now's a perfect time to get into the legendary history of professional Korean Overwatch. It is an atmosphere like no other, and I promise you that. If you watching this are a recent Overwatch esports fan and you don't know much about these teams or some of the players, I highly recommend going back and watching what made this game so special early on and how it turned into what you see today. A lot of these guys are legends and true predecessors of this game. Take some time to appreciate how these guys helped push Overwatch to brand new heights. I am very much looking forward to Friday and Saturday, and I hope you are too. If you're hyped to watch these 4 legendary franchises go back at it once again, give this video a big fat thumbs up, and make sure to leave a comment down below with your prediction on who wins and who you're looking forward to watching the most. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.